I started in 2019. You guys would not believe how broken bulk sheets were when I first got started.
Oh, it was a different format. Yeah.
Yeah, it was there were so many bugs with the bulk sheets, and it was crazy that nobody was catching them. I was like, I sent to the Amazon reps. I was like, so here's one example, and I think I said this actually a year ago when I was on this AMA, but there was a time where if you said I want to increase my placements for top of search on the bulk file, if you said I want to increase it by 100%, they would take that percent and they would actualize it as 1, because 1 is like 100%. And if you said 200%,
got it. So you had to like do this math of like,
so if you said increase by 25%, it would actualize as 0 because it would round down because you need to have a whole number.
Got it.
And if you tried to enter higher, so like if I actually wanted to increase by 100%, I would have to say increase by like 1,000% or whatever. And then it would throw an error that would be like, well, you can't go higher than 900. Because it was this weird thing, because like you can't increase by more than 900%. So it will throw an error if you try to do more than 900%. But if you actually did 900%, it would actualize as only a 9% increase. So you couldn't possibly increase by more than 9% on a bulk file because of these bugs. And I flagged it to them. And they were like, no one pointed this out yet. And I was like, this is crazy. That means either nobody's optimizing placements or nobody's using bulk sheets or a combination of the both. And yeah, I mean, that just became my passion. So it was really fun back in the day because there was no help documentation. Everything was just, trying to learn by Braille, practically just pushing files through, seeing what it's pushed back and troubleshooting. It was a really fun time. And
it wasn't Braille; it was punch cards, if I remember correctly.
Punch cards, yes.
No, just kidding.
And
it wasn't that bad.
I was actually a little bit sad when Amazon, they made their bulk sheets better and provided.
You were sad that they improved.
Yeah, and provided a ton of extremely helpful documentation because that made it a lot more accessible to everybody else to use bulk files, which to me was a major part of my competitive advantage. Was that like I was the only one who spent 20 hours stumbling through it to figure out how it works, So I was like, I was a phenomenal consultant. I would like show people all like the weird, ways you got to like gimmick the spreadsheet and everything. But point being, I did bulk sheets for many, many years. That was always where my passion lied, was bulk operations. I always felt I could outperform automated systems because when you're that much closer to the being in the weeds with managing bids and everything. And I'm a firm believer that bid management is the 20% of effort that yields 80% of results, because on a pay-per-click platform, you've got thousands of keywords that all have CPCs, and each keyword's individual CPC is controlling your profitability, your overall investment levels, and your ranking for those keywords. And so those three things combined are like everything that goes into a PPC account. So managing bids is extremely important. I was doing everything manually, and then less than a year ago, so I think we started it. We opened the doors on like November 20th. We launched the first bulk optimizer that is a non-manual solution, but it's a software. So it's the first, like, there's tons of softwares out there that automate your bids. We were the very first one to be, basically it's a macro-enabled spreadsheet. You could think of it that way, like having a Google Sheet that's connected to the Amazon Ads API. So you're, streaming your data, and it's basically a better ad console. It's faster, it's cleaner. There's no pagination, so you can see like hundreds of thousands of search terms on a single screen, and there's no automation. So that's what we made, and that's what I do now. So that's what Adlabs is.
Cool. All right. So with that,
sorry, that was not a short intro.
No. That was good. That was good. So it was your journey through bulk files into other things. Now, everyone, stick around to the end because we'll do another vote here on U.S. Election Day. We will not give any sort of commentary or predictions on how tonight goes because I don't know. And honestly, our lives won't be much different either way because we're going to focus on what we can control here. All right. So with that, Mohammed says, hi, Kevin and Steven. West Star says, could you give me the email address here? I had promised an email address to two people who won earlier. If you're not one of those two people who won, don't need the email address at this point, although we might be doing some sort of giveaway later on. So Serge says hello, then says, how do you optimize a keyword bid if you have a high ACoS on it, but its current bid is already lower than average CPC? You have bids down only and no placement modifiers. Make sure I understand. So you have
Okay,
a
this is
keyword. All right, I'll let you.
phenomenal
summarize it
question.
while I'm
Phenomenal
trying to
question.
Figure
And I'm
out
glad,
the
we
math
are
problem here.
starting strong. And I'm going to tell you why this is such a good question. Because the prevailing logic that everybody's using out there, whether you are an agency, a freelancer, like you're a brand owner managing your own stuff, when people are managing things on bulk sheets, or if they're using a rule-based automation with like some other software, what the best practice is, if there is a keyword where the ACoS is high, you should reduce the bid by 10, 15, 20%. And I have spoken at length to why that is incorrect. But the best example I can think of is, this question is right on exactly why that's incorrect, actually. So when you have a high ACoS keyword, the solution is not to reduce the bid necessarily, because the bid itself is not the same as the historical CPC. So I'm going to give you an extreme hypothetical just to prove the point. Let's just say I had a keyword that was bidding $2 and it had a $2 CPC for the last 30 days, and the ACoS is really, really high. And let's just say I'm jumping in there thinking, okay, I need to reduce the bid on this keyword because the CPC is too high, the ACoS is too high. And when I go to look at the keyword, let's say the bid is actually now 5 cents. Okay. And how did it get to 5 cents? Who knows? Maybe I changed it and I didn't realize it, or someone else on my team changed it. But the bid is now 5 cents. So the bid's already been reduced. But when I look at the last 30 days or 60 days, I'm seeing the CPC for a much longer date range. And the historical CPC is not the same as the bid. The bid is, you have to think of it, the bid is a current status of the keyword. It's not a historical data point. It is signifying what it's currently set to. So if I reduce the bid, or actually, let me back up. A better example would be, you have this $2 CPC and the bid is $2. If I reduce the bid to $1, the historical CPC is still $2. If I reduce the bid to 5 cents, the historical bid is still, or the historical CPC is still $2. So reducing the bid does not change the historical CPC. Point being,
that's a good point.
To just reduce it by a certain percent is missing a big part of the story of, like, you don't know how many bid changes you've already done on this keyword, and to try to track, like, okay, only if, what a lot of people try to do as a workaround is I'll only optimize the bid every 7 days. So they'll reduce the bid, wait 7 days, but you might not have reduced it far enough and you're continuing to bleed out on this high ACoS keyword. And then 7 days later, you come back and you reduce it again. And then, like, you bleed out for another 7 days. And it could take you like 5, 6, 7 iterations before you finally get that bid down to where it should be. And the solution to this, to make a long story long, the solution is, instead of just reducing the bid by some arbitrary percentage amount, you should be calculating how much is that keyword worth based on how many sales that keyword has been generating within that date range. And so on my YouTube channel, if you want to check it out, it's called That Amazon Ads Podcast, but there's a few episodes. We have one dedicated specifically to optimizing high ACoS keywords, where we talk about this thing in detail. And then we have another one titled Why Revenue Per Click is King. But that's the ultimate solution there, is you want to be calculating the revenue per click for that keyword, which is the sales divided by clicks, and then multiplying that by your target ACoS to figure out what should that CPC be so that you hit the target ACoS. And why I love that formula is because you can calculate that bid. If that keyword's high ACoS, you can calculate the bid 100 times a day with that formula, and you're always going to get the same output. So there's no risk. Like, if you're using just that decrease by percentage amount, you then have to be extremely mindful of the frequency. If you run that decrease by percentage too many times, you're going to bring that bid all the way down to 2 cents because you ran it too frequently. And if you don't run it frequently enough, then you're going to be, potentially bleeding out with high ACoS for way too long and losing a lot of money. So you're decreasing by a percentage amount. The frequency has to be perfect. And it's really impossible to get the right frequency, because every single keyword should have a different frequency, because you're getting different traffic and different spend on every single one. So there is no perfect frequency for that. Whereas if you just calculate the bid, what it should be, it doesn't matter if you optimize it super frequently, infrequently, like, you're always going to have the right bid.
Awesome.
Hopefully that made sense.
No, it did. So basically, to answer the specific question, was the look back period you're looking at may be different than the current period. So you may have optimized sometime in the middle there. And that could be the reason why your bid is different. If it's not, then definitely check your other settings just to make sure you don't have a modifier somewhere that you're not familiar with, or you think you have up, down. But usually I find it's a historical bid adjustment. Like you were looking at a 60-day time period and 2 weeks ago you changed the bid or something like that. And so that could be the reason why. How often do you optimize your SEO on Amazon for one product?
Yeah, that's a tricky question. I would say, so I'm not an SEO expert, but in a very, very general sense, I would say from the very beginning, you should make the SEO perfect. And from there, you should just update the SEO anytime you're seeing a change in the trends in the keywords. So if you're selling tennis rackets, very likely like the top 10 keywords within that tennis racket and variations of those aren't going to change that much. So you probably really only need to if you did the SEO perfect from the beginning. So I would say you might want to do it more frequently just because you probably didn't get it perfect from the beginning. But if you got the SEO perfect from the beginning, I don't think you need to update it super frequently because the trends on those keywords probably don't change that much. It's always going to be some very close variation of tennis rackets that you want to be, indexed for. So pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I would say for SEO, you don't need to do it as frequently as you do PPC, but you should be looking at your search query performance report, which on this channel, if you're on YouTube, we have multiple videos about search query performance reports. Or as Stephen with a V, not Stephen with a PH. We got the PhD right here. Stephen with a V would call it ICAP. Oftentimes he refers to it as the impressions, clicks, add to carts, purchases, which you'll see on your search query performance report, which will help you out there. All right. So next up, hello, this is from Keith. If I have a listing with multiple variations of different colors, should I run PPC for all of them? What are the pros and cons? So what are your thoughts for when folks have children? Child variations, I should say.
So we just did an episode that dropped today on our podcast.
What?
Around today, yes, on campaign structure. So I would say go to that one for a more in-depth conversation because I would say in a general sense, yes, just run PPC on all of them. Depending on how much traffic each individual ASIN is getting will dictate whether you are using like multi-product ad groups, meaning you have all those variations in the same ad group, or you're putting them into individual ad groups. So it's single product ad groups, but they can all be within one campaign for like that parent ASIN, or you could split them up into single product campaigns for every single individual one. Let's just use like the very basic one. Let's say you're not getting a ton of traffic on any of these individually. So you kind of want to aggregate that data a bit more at a holistic level, meaning if they're all in the same ad group, you have, let's just say you're selling like, colorful, let's say you're running political t-shirts, right? You're selling political t-shirts.
It is election day.
Yeah. You're selling political t-shirts and you have, 10 different colors of them. Well, that one keyword, political t-shirt, if you have 10 different products in the same ad group, that one keyword is going to be aggregating all of the data around all of those 10 products that are, rotating in and out of getting clicks. And you'll have a little bit more data on that individual keyword. Whereas if you split them up into 10 different ad groups, you are then going to have, if that you're getting a little bit more thin spread data. So political t-shirts, if it got 10 clicks across, one click for each of your 10 products, well, it's a little easier to optimize one keyword with 10 clicks and one sale compared to you now have 10 unique keywords in 10 different ad groups. They all got one click. 9 of them got no sale. 1 of them got one sale. That's just a bit harder to optimize if you don't have a system that can roll up those metrics for you, which is part of what Adlabs does, but I'll shut up about that. But the reason why I would advocate for promoting all of them is because Amazon uses a lot more complexity in their algorithm in which it is tailored to individual shoppers, the experience. So if I am someone who Amazon knows I'm always buying black shirts, black pants, like that's just my vibe. Then if your bestseller is like a red shirt, and so you're selling your red political shirt or whatever, but when I come in and I type in political shirt, Amazon knows I really like black clothes. Then if you're supporting that black shirt in your PPC somewhere, then Amazon will prefer that for me specifically. So there is a little bit of dynamicism. Is that a word?
I think it works.
Yeah. Dynamicism.
You're actually looking to see if it's in the dictionary.
Yeah, I think it's a word. Yep. So
okay,
there's a
according
little bit
to the Google.
Yeah. The search engine result page is not identical for every single person. Now, web scrapers and things that are tracking organic rank and everything, they're usually in incognito. So it's kind of like the default. If Amazon doesn't have any past history on this user, then like what would the natural kind of ranking appear as? However, that's not the real life how things work in real life. Every single person is usually signed into their Amazon account. They have browsing history, they have purchase history, and Amazon's tailoring that towards that individual shopper. So if I'm someone who typically buys more premium products, then when I'm typing in the search bar, Amazon will probably show me more premium, higher priced products, versus if I have a history of being way more budget conscious and trying to buy the cheapest product ever, my search page will look more like it'll show more of the cheaper product. So it does differ a bit from user to user. So for that reason, throw them all in there so that you can tap into Amazon's natural algorithm, and then just make sure you have a good structure set up to maximize the returns on it.
Got it. Okay.
I'm really struggling with short answers today. I apologize.
No, that's okay. So the key of it is pick your strongest color in this case and go with that.
I would say, yeah, to break it down to one thing, I would say support them all, use separate ad groups.
Got it. Okay. All right. So Asif Khan says, if we're running a keyword in an exact match campaign, but it's underperforming, would it be advisable to test the same keyword in phrase or broad type match? Additionally, would you recommend negating this keyword in the exact match to avoid overlap, or to keep it across different match types? Other Steven has very strong opinions, which he's voiced publicly about this type of situation, but I want to hear your thoughts first.
Yeah, if you're running keyword in an exact match, it's underperforming. So the question there I would ask is like, what does underperforming mean? Is it really low conversion rate? Or is it really high ACoS, which that high ACoS could be either from low conversion rate or just the CPC is too high. So I would first say you try optimizing those bids. If it's just that the conversion rate's really low, I don't think you're going to magically get a better conversion rate because you had the exact same search term just appearing now on a broader phrase match. So I would not recommend, I don't think that's going to fix the problem. And then the second part, would you recommend negating this keyword in the exact match campaign to avoid overlap? So yeah, I don't think you don't. And we did a 2v2 debate, which is related to this topic, but it was me and my podcast co-host, Andrew Bailiff. And we also had Mina Elias and Carly McMillan. And it was a 2v2 debate talking on, should you negate harvested keywords to avoid that overlap and things like that? The reason why we did the debate is because there's not a clear answer. It's largely kind of just comes down to your own preference is a big part of it. So my preference is to not negate. I don't see a big concern with overlap, especially if you have multiple parent ASINs that are all related to that same keyword. You 100% want all of your parent ASINs to be bidding on that keyword because you want to maximize your impression share, like your own brand's impression share in search for that search term. So if you only, like if you're selling 20 different tennis rackets and the keyword is tennis rackets, you want as many of your parent ASINs to be on that page, because if you only have one product appearing on the whole entire search engine of 80 products, you're just not going to get as much traffic, as opposed to if you have 25 products up there and you're dominating more than 25% of the page, more than 25% brand impression share. That's massive. So I would definitely include it everywhere. Now, if let's just say you have just one product and it's an exact match in one campaign and then also in a broad and phrase campaign, and you're wondering, should I like negate it from the broad and phrase to send all the traffic to the exact? You can. I don't think it's going to make a difference either way. I think it'll all kind of balance out at the end of the day. So for for my preference is to not negate, just because I think it's an easier and more consistent way to manage. Because if you negate all of like the converting search terms from your auto campaigns, your broad campaigns, it just kind of like messes up your bid optimizations moving forward, because you just negated everything that was driving a sale there. And next time you calculate the bids, it's not going to be super accurate.
Yeah, and that's 100% on board with the official MAG thought process on that too, which Stephen with a V is very passionate about. His phrase is never negate a good keyword. And that because so many people are spending so much time on exact match keywords, that why not go after some lower hanging fruit with, broad and potentially phrase, and don't negate it, because it might not do as well in the exact match campaign as it is in the broad match campaign. So variety of reasons that we would suggest not to negate it. All right. So Mohammed asks, question, what would be your pricing strategy during the new launch in the competitive low ticket niche like lunch boxes, pricing around $12 on average?
Yeah. So I've never personally launched a product, so I'm not the best person to ask for that. I've worked with brands that are launching products, and I can help support them with PPC, but I've never personally launched a product. I'll just tell you from my experience, what I see Chinese sellers doing, and it allows them to take the place by storm, is they sell the thing at a major loss for like 3 to 6 months, but they have very deep pockets to afford that. And it just ensures that product, gets tons of reviews, tons of momentum, ranks number one, and then they bring those prices back up. So the brands I work with have never been able to quite afford that, because they're not these massive Chinese conglomerates with super cheap manufacturing. But in general, I would just say, like, you're probably just going to have to lose money on it for quite a while. And absolutely just make sure that listing is perfect from day one. Absolutely perfect. Beautiful images. All the images are perfect. You've already A/B tested them with PickFu, and you've already given the product to a few friends. You've gotten positive reviews on it, because something else I'll see people do is they put a product in and the product wasn't perfect, and then they get a bunch of negative reviews, and then they have to like recreate the product. Like, just make sure the product's perfect from its durability to the listing and everything like that, and then just lose money on it for 3 months and get it those reviews cranking.
Another thing I would suggest is don't go after the term lunchbox, and tell me if you disagree. Like, lunchbox might be too expensive, especially if you're trying to, get your initial reviews. I would go after longer tail keywords. Yeah,
I would throw lunchbox in there just in case. But I would, calculating your starting bid, I won't dive into that quite yet, but you would calculate what your starting bid should be based on your projections and estimates. And I would just throw lunchbox in there. Let's just say you think you can max afford 50-cent CPCs. I would throw lunchbox in there with 50-cent CPC. You might not get any clicks or traffic because the bid's too low, but I would keep it in there just in case. You might get some sales on it if towards the end of the day and the competition's been running out of budget or whatever.
Sure. Well, and too, you might get some long tail keywords as customer search terms if you're doing broad that you might not have thought about or discovered during keyword research, and those might be very relevant to your product and customers like it. So I can see that going both ways. All right. Keith asks, have you noticed the campaigns manager crash or glitching out very often lately?
Not lately, but I think last month or like 2 months ago, like a month or two ago. Yeah, I was kind of doing that a lot. It's annoying.
I'm starting to find the internet glitching more often in general. If you're starting to have a lot of glitches, check your Chrome extensions, turn them all off, and start turning them on one by one and see if that makes a difference with some of the glitches. I have noticed some name brand Chrome extensions. I don't want to say names. I've had issues with like non-Amazon related websites just because I had it active, and I turned it off and it worked fine all of a sudden. So
Yeah.
just keep that in mind. Chrome extensions oftentimes are very aggressive. And if the website makes a difference, or the Chrome extension makes a difference, or it makes an update, that sometimes can all of a sudden throw things off and things don't work like they used to. So that could be
Yeah.
part of
My
it too.
entire Chrome browser has been extremely buggy lately, and it's ridiculously irritating. And I have a very long rant about the decline of technology and a conspiracy theory that's attached to it that I'm not going to get into. But
Okay. Well, it is election day, so we get into conspiracy theories. Like, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. All right. So, quick question: do you know of any software tools or tools that can track organic search terms? I mean, tracking what percentage of total sales came from a specific term organically for Amazon, other than sponsored. Because without that, we're kind of shooting arrows in the dark, aren't we? If we have multiple SKUs in one or that looks like a separate question. So we'll get to that one next.
Yeah. Good question. I don't know of any tools. So there's a lot of tools that track like organic ranking for different queries. I don't know of anything that actually breaks it down to say for this keyword how many sales came from paid versus how many were organic. There's this guy named Yuri Rahimi who created the Seller Central Utilities Chrome extension, which is a great tool that helps. Yeah, it's a great tool that allows you to quickly download all of your search query performance reports in bulk. What's that?
I said I'm looking it up.
Oh yeah, I need a promo code for that because I should get some. Well, it's free, so I guess there's no commission to get. Oh. But we were having a conversation with him the other day where he mentioned he is trying to do something. If I understood him properly, he's trying to do something exactly like that, where we'll use the ASIN query reports from search query performance, and we'll try to rectify that to calculate an estimate for how many organic sales you got from those keywords. So, nothing exists yet, but I think the Seller Central Utilities app might be the first one to do that.
Okay, good deal. And I see your name there is you stand behind liking it publicly. All right, cool. All right, so that's good. I'll have to try it myself. I never heard of it, but it looks like it's relatively newish to the game. It's not like one of these. It's like Jungle Scouts.
Yeah, it was like
out for 9
years.
It was
earlier this year. Yuri is he's an Amazon seller with a programming background, so he just kind of made this thing for himself because those search query performance reports are not available in the API. So he's able to pull stuff from the API because he knows how to do that. But there was nothing to pull these reports from that are obviously very important for tracking search volume and impression share and all that stuff. So he just created. It's basically like a bot that just clicks through the Chrome browser and grabs all those reports for you. So you don't have to go through one at a time to generate, 18 different reports. It'll just do them all for you and save it to your computer.
Nice. All right. So next up, we have Lit's follow-up question is, if we have multiple SKUs in one campaign and are targeting a single keyword, which ad would win the spot? And if we have multiple SKUs with multiple keywords, what would the scenario be? Now, assume these SKUs are all variations, so please share your thoughts for both scenarios.
Yeah, so you got one campaign, and let's just say there's one keyword in there, and you got 10 different SKUs, all variations of each other. Which one wins? It's whichever one Amazon thinks is better for that keyword. And like I was saying earlier, there might be some products that just have some of your products just have a higher click-through rate or higher conversion rate for that keyword. So Amazon's going to naturally prefer that product. They might rotate out and throw in a few other ones just in case. Or there may be, like I said earlier, different shoppers have different preferences, and Amazon might, maybe there's one product that typically does best, and that's the one that's going to get 80% of the clicks. But on some occasions, there's a shopper that really likes this certain color, or they tend to like bulk products. So if there's like a bulk option that's more value, they'll prefer that one for those shoppers. So, yeah.
Awesome.
And same thing if it's multiple keywords. Same thing.
Amazon, like they're not always 100% aligned with sellers, but there is an overlap of where their interests are coincide with ours, and they want the best products to win. So if you have, multiple variations, they want to pick the best one. So
yeah, what I've told people is SEO. There's only two things that matter to ranking on Amazon. It's, does the customer like you, and does Amazon like you? So does the customer like you? That means like you have a good conversion rate on that product and a low return rate. So people like the product for that keyword. And then does Amazon like you? Is Amazon making money? Amazon
speaking
gets
of
good margins,
liking,
things like that. Who's this? I
so
can't see.
that Amazon Ads
Oh,
podcast asks, "Hey, are you cheating on me with another podcast?"
the answer is yes. I think that's Andrew
RN?
Bailiff.
What
Right
is
now,
RN?
it's
Maybe this is
it's
my Gen
right
X
now,
lack of
or
emoji.
registered nurse.
Oh, right now, that would
Yeah,
make more sense. Yeah, I was thinking
yeah.
registered nurse, but that didn't make sense. um, but right now, yes, thank you for saving me there.
Go
But
subscribe
yes,
to that Amazon Ads podcast. You can
yeah,
just
you
click
might
that.
as well. And
Subscribe. Yeah.
so we a little shout out there to the Amazon Ads
Yeah,
podcast. Now,
we've
if you
had
have
Stephen Pope on there. I debated Stephen Pope one time on
oh,
what's more important, click-through rate or conversion rate. That's a fun episode.
gotcha. Stephen is very passionate about
Yep.
its click-through rate is more important.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're both important. And if you look at some metrics for Amazon, where they talk about conversion rate, they're really talking about click-through rate times conversion rate, as we would think of it, is on page. Like Amazon experiments, for example, like the conversion rate they give you is not on page. It's, impression to sale, which is what they really care about. Why would they show a product unless that's going to be more likely to get them a sale on the other end? So
yeah, click conversion rate.
Click conversion rate. All right, I like that. All right, so Adnan on Facebook asks, "Hey, I'm managing PPC for a UK brand with a high price product versus competitors. Despite clicks, conversions are low, which means they're getting a lot of clicks, and lowering the price isn't an option. What strategies can improve conversion rates for given the pricing challenge?"
Yeah, I get
this tees you up since you're the conversion guy.
Yeah, I'm not the conversion guy, but because of this scenario, the reason why I say conversion is more important is let's say with this product. Let's say you have a ridiculously good click-through rate on this product. Okay, well, on a PPC platform, you're paying for all those clicks, and if the sales aren't coming through, you're bleeding out. So, that's why you really have to be able to afford those clicks with a certain level of conversion, and those scenarios are very common and also very difficult. Especially with a lot more price sensitive consumers these days, it's really difficult to compete on those prices. So I would still recommend like running deals as much as you can, and if that's just not an option, then you got to go all in on improving that conversion rate, which mostly I think just comes down to the media. So the images, and then one really good video. For that video, I would focus on customer testimonials. Those go a long way because those are basically like reviews, but they're like video reviews, right? So people usually click on the reviews, they read through the reviews, but if one of those videos is just a compilation of all these satisfied customers who are saying, I got this one, and especially if you can contrast it to the cheaper products. So we did this with another brand where it was a certain kitchen appliance. There were lots of products selling for $8. Our product was selling for like $60. So the video ad that we run for a sponsor brand video, and also we put it on the listing, is it says, don't settle for a cheap thermometer. And then we bought a bunch of cheap thermometers, and like we showed them like breaking, you just drop it on the floor. But our product is more durable, more accurate, these types of things.
Yeah, definitely.
Oops,
Lots of things you can do that.
I didn't mean to.
What's that? Oh, it said the type of product. I just heard you say product. But yeah, basically, there's a few other things I would do too, like do a pick food test where you don't even have to like do a head to head. You can just ask for feedback. Basically, that's one of the things you could do on there. What are your competitors doing that seem to be better? Like, their images, how are their images better? So,
I worked with another brand where we did tons of pick food things to figure out like, why are these other brands getting the bestseller and beating us on rank? And it all came down to just price. Like that was with hundreds of people surveyed in our pick food results, everything was just about price. And so that was really unfortunate. And what I told the brand is like, we need to invest in videos that are showing people who are saying, like, there's an expression that says, I'm not poor enough to buy cheap things, with the meaning being that, like, if you buy something cheap, it's going to break and you're going to have to buy another one. It actually ends up costing you more money. Sorry,
more in
I
the
said I'm
long
not poor enough.
run.
Yeah, I'm not rich enough to buy cheap things. That's what it is. I'm not rich enough to buy cheap things. And so that would be the messaging that I would try to make it as, is like, you're actually saving money in the long term by just getting a better product that's more durable. And unfortunately, this brand did not move forward with doing that strategy that I said, and their sales continue to decline. So that's the thing I wish they would do.
Good points. All right. So Serge says, thank you for the detailed answer. That was from earlier, and gave his emoji vote. So I can't tell what emoji that is. But thank you for the emoji vote.
It's a little smiley face, I think.
Is it a smiley face? My plus 40 something eyes are not able to tell. All right. So next up, Alan says, how can you associate yourself?
It's a hostile question.
Yeah, it's a hostile question. I don't know. All right. Dot says, my listing got split with parent ASIN, and now I have multiple listings for child ASINs with split reviews and ratings. Amazon will not fix it. I tried to upload via file, but didn't work. Please advise.
I'm not the expert on that. I would probably ask Seller Candy. I've never used them, but I've heard good things about them. They are Seller Candy basically goes to battle for you with seller support, and they hire ex-Amazon employees who are familiar with like the internal workings of seller support system to help be more efficient with that. So that's what I would do.
Yeah, so the listing got split from parent ASIN. Now I have multiple listings for child ASINs with split reviews. Amazon will not fix it. Well, first off, is it legitimately like you could argue, hey, Amazon, here's your stated policy. These are truly size, or these are truly color. Because sometimes Amazon will take ones off because their bots think they're not real. Shout out to our team. If you go to myamazonguy.com, we do have troubleshooting hours where our team can help you with some of these type of things.
Don't go to Seller Candy. Go to My Amazon Guy.
go to whoever you want, whoever you are comfortable with. We'll just say that we have an abundance mindset that there's enough options here in the pot. So anyway, Adnan Amir says, "Hey, that was already.
I think we already hit that one.
We already hit that one. It looks like you asked it twice.
What time do we end, by the way?
In about 19 minutes. So
okay, I'm trying to fire.
If you have questions,
shorter. I'm gonna do shorter responses moving forward.
All right. I will. I'll time them. No, I'm just kidding. Safi Ula asks, when we have added a negative keyword phrase in a campaign, how can we remove the negative keyword from the campaign?
There is a archive. You have to archive it. You can do that either in the ad console or on a bulk sheet. You can just change the status on that negative keyword to archived. And there you go.
There you go. All right. Javid asks, what would be the scenario using the same converting keywords in all my campaigns? Thank you. Let's say my keywords is brand name. So basically they want to use their branded keyword in every campaign is what they're asking.
Yeah, I would definitely 1,000,000% keep your brand keywords from your non-brand keywords in separate campaigns. Like 1,000,000%. Do not let the two be in the same campaign and negate your brand as a phrase match from all of your non-brand campaigns. Essential, absolutely essential. Can't stress that enough. And then I think I kind of already touched on that previously around like, is it okay to have the same keyword with the same products? And I say, yeah, no problem. Go for it.
Got it. All right. Nab asks you're getting very concise. Nab asks, if I'm running a broad campaign for keyword menopause supplement, does it make sense to run another broad campaign for menopause supplement for women? I ask if it has the same root.
Yep. Go for it. Same
You
reason
want to give
for
a little
before.
bit more color insights?
Same
into
reason.
that
Same
one?
reason as above. We mentioned like I don't think it's super important to perfectly isolate all these exact matches. I think it's totally fine to have there be some overlap. That it's a spectrum. You can be way more granular, segmented, isolated to like perfectly exact queries where like, and you have as much control as you possibly can. And then the other side of the spectrum is like giving Amazon all the control and going super broad, super auto, just letting Amazon's algorithm figure it out. The balance is somewhere in the middle where like you want to be, if you're too controlling over it, you are not going to play into the other algorithmic benefits that you can't control, such as the things we mentioned, like different shoppers having different preferences, different purchase history, behavior, whatever, view history. Those are things you do want to tap into. And that's where I'm okay with there being some overlap between some overlap between a keyword being in this campaign and another campaign, two different products hitting that same keyword, having this one broad match and then another longer tail broad match where the two both like technically both compete for the same thing. Like that's fine. But you know, you definitely want to make a good use of those exact match keywords. Those exact match should be like 80% of the total spend in your manual campaigns. But yeah, like don't go crazy trying to segment everything perfectly, like play into the algorithm a little bit.
Gotcha. All right. Safi Ula says in category product targeting, once we have, this must be back to follow up to the previous question about adding negative keyword phrase in a campaign. How can we remove the negative keywords?
I think this one's a little different. Yeah, it's saying if
sorry, this was the beginning of it in product targeting. Once we've refined the criteria and set price range products within the range, is it possible to later change that price range in the campaign?
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, but I mean, you could just go try to change it and find out.
Yeah. Yes. Some of these things are kind of like how Steven learned bulk files. You just got to try.
Yeah, I would think that you can't. From what I've seen happen, you can usually only edit the bids on a keyword, but you can't like change the match type of a keyword. And I think that would also say you can't change the refining aspect of those category targeting, product attribute targeting keywords. So I think not. I think you just got to make a new one.
Okay, that would make sense because some things are kind of locked in at the record ID level.
Exactly.
All right. Ali Anwar says, hello, hope you are doing great. We both are. Thank you. I am selling frozen raw dog food and running automatic PPC, getting most sales on keyword frozen raw dog food. And when I run PPC on this exact broad and phrase PPC on this keyword, it doesn't get sales. So can you please explain why is it so?
It could just be that you're not bidding high enough on those other keywords. So maybe in that auto campaign, you are getting, let's just say you're getting away with like a $1 CPC on that search term. And then in the other campaigns, you're only bidding like 50 cents or something. Now, you're not competing against yourself with those bids, but you are competing against the other seller. So if everyone else is also bidding on frozen raw dog food and the average CPC for those is going for $1, well, you are bidding at least $1 for that search term in the auto campaign. You're not bidding high enough in those other manual campaigns. So, yeah, so that could be why you're not getting any traffic there. Or if they're bidding the same, if you're bidding $1 on both, then sometimes
could it be that the algorithm just has the history of sales in the auto campaign, and so that's where it prefers to give favorable impressions to?
That has been historically the thought. I don't think Amazon cares too much about a campaign's history. I think the algorithm primarily just comes down to the product query relationship. Like that's where the history comes down to. Like this product, this ASIN, this search term, how does that perform across everything? Organic, paid, everything like that. So if you shut off that campaign and start a brand new campaign, if you duplicate that campaign and start a completely new campaign, it should pick up with the exact same performance as the other one. You're not going to like lose momentum because like if you duplicate a campaign and pause the old one, the new one will carry on exactly as it was.
Really? Have you ever tested that?
I've done a lot. Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Good.
Yeah.
Awesome. That would be an interesting debate because that one's one that's kind of become very canonical You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's become part of this is just the common belief.
Yeah.
Although not everybody agrees with that. So maybe it's
Well,
not
and a
as.
lot of times why it is sometimes people will create a new campaign or harvest a keyword into a new campaign and they don't get the same performance, but there's a lot of other variables at play. For example, like if that search term is also available in other campaigns, then like they might just be picking up the traffic, and that's why the new keyword in the new campaign isn't getting any traffic. And then if you sufficiently negate it from everywhere else, and then you move it into this other campaign, then and you might say like I'm not getting the same level of conversion or whatever. It could also be that your placement adjustments weren't properly set up on that one. Maybe the other campaign had a 50% increase for top of search, and this new campaign doesn't have that same increase, and that's why it seems like the conversion rates are going lower. But if you just think about it logically, if someone's typing in frozen raw dog food and they're seeing your product, and let's just say after a few weeks you have a 10% conversion rate, okay, well for the next month, if a very similar audience on Amazon is searching and they're seeing sponsored for this frozen raw dog food and they're clicking that product, why would the conversion rate just magically drop? Like the audience that's shopping on Amazon, they're not privy to the fact that like, oh, this one sponsored ad switched from one sponsored product campaign to another sponsored product campaign. Like, I don't think that affects the conversion rates.
I have always kind of thought though, because they're like when you pull the bulk file, especially in the new version, you see, campaign ID, ad group ID, and there's a record ID. So if it's the record is a keyword, there's some sort of history baked into some server somewhere for that record ID. It's my personal thought process, but what you're saying makes sense too. So it could go either way. So we might just have to arm wrestle over it.
They do have some public patents on that are filed with Google that you can go look at. They have a few different patents with their algorithm, and everything is just about the item query relationship. It never mentions any different values for if that query was in a paid campaign or not. So that's my story.
You're sticking to it. All right. You had said because it's election day, you had something people could vote for. What is your vote, A or B?
I would say let's find out what's more important: click-through rates or conversion rates. That's a good one.
Oh, okay. So CTR or CVR?
Which is more important to be successful on Amazon?
Extremely non-scientific poll here. Just type into the chat: CTR or CVR? Click-through rate or conversion rate? Which are so similar. So it's really just the T or the V. So CTR or CVR? And who knows, we might reward participation one way, shape, or form. Yeah. But while people are coming up with that, I'm going to get to a question for someone who I don't believe has asked the other question. EJ Kelly says, hi, how far back do you go when optimizing keywords? That's a good question.
Yep. We also have a full episode on this one on picking a date range for optimizations. The answer is that you want to be shorter time frame gives you better data relevance because it's more recent trends, but fewer overall clicks. So just fewer data points. Longer time frames, obviously a lot more clicks, a lot more data to rely on, but not necessarily capturing recent trends. So I usually start with, like, if I'm using Adlabs, I'll look at like the last 60 or 90 days. I'll toggle to a weekly view and I'll look at conversion rates over the several weeks and see if I'm seeing any big changes. If I'm not, then I'm okay using a longer time frame, usually like within that 30, 45 day window. And then if I do see more recent trends happening where conversion rates are on the up and up or on the down and down, then I'll go for a slightly shorter time frame, probably around like 10 to 14 days. I don't really like going below 10 days, definitely not below 7 days. You just run into, it's just usually not enough data to have that confidence. The only exception is if something went really bad over the last like 2 days, then what I'll do, and I had this recently, if your ACoS just went crazy and spend went crazy for the last 2 days, then I might pick just the last like 3 to 4 days and optimize, but I'm only going to be optimizing a small selection of keywords. Just like what were the top 20% of keywords that spent the most with a really high ACoS, and I'm just going to pull those down. But I would never optimize my whole entire account based on that short of a time frame.
Got it. All right. So we threw out a poll. I don't know if people heard us, but Which is more important, click-through rate, CTR, or conversion rate, CVR? So let us know in the comments. You don't have to put it like a whole thing. Just put in CTR, CVR, or you can put T for through or V for version. We'll know what you mean. So put that in the chat. This is the last opportunity to do that. With that, where would folks go if they want to learn more or follow you, Stephen?
Yeah, so my LinkedIn is a great place to connect with me and shoot me a DM. I do get lots of spammy connect requests. So when you
As does
connect,
everyone these days.
yeah, you can do add a note. Just add a note and say mag, just so I can know that you're a normal
mag
person, not a
AMA
bot.
live stream.
Yeah, just
Cool.
send me that note and I'll accept that request and we can message there. And then like I said, our YouTube channel is a great additional resource. That Amazon Ads podcast, we focus exclusively on PPC. And then if you want to check out our free bid optimizer that does a lot of what I was just explaining, you can go to adlabs.app, completely free for sponsored products. Then you can upgrade if you want to do sponsored brands.
Awesome. And if they want to learn more from you, they can also check out on Thursday at 1:00 p.m. Eastern time. You're part of a PPC expert roundtable with Stephen, Stephen Pope, Mag Stephen, as well as Stephen with a PH, Stephen Knock, and Chris Rawlings and Ritu Java will be there as well. And just head on over to myamazonguy.com/roundtable. That will not be publicly broadcasted, so you must be registered to attend, and space is limited because it's on our plan. So with that, we'll get to the votes here in just a second for click-through rates or conversion rate. Which one is better?
Looks like click-through rate 1.
Yes. So John says CTR. Mercedes says CTR. Asif says CTR. Jim Zoo says CVR, click-through rate. Javed says both. And so Keith says CTR. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 6 people that gave their votes, even though one was voting for both, which that would be rejected by the voting machines. If I circled both, it would make me go back and refill it out or something like that. So in your opinion, give me 1 through 6. Pick a number.
5.
5. Should I go up or down?
Up.
Okay, so I'm going to start from the bottom. I'm going to go up, counting to 6. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So Mercedes Sue, who, which I think I said it right, voted for click-through rate. So we must have a lot of people that watch my Amazon Guy content. So they're very
loyal audience.
Loyal audience, which we appreciate, on Stephen's strong beliefs on click-through rate being more important. So Mercedes, email kevin@myamazonguy.com. Let me know that you are the one that voted for the CTR that won. Not everyone is getting a winner here, but you will get our I'll just have somebody give you a free coupon code. Pick the Mag School course of your choosing. And with that, I want to thank our guest, Stephen with a PH, for joining us. Stephen, lots of good insight there on PPC. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Great seeing you. See you Thursday.
See you on Thursday.